Hello friends, thank you for watching this video. I am Mohamad and today we're going to be creating a full-fledged API with .NET. We're going to be creating different endpoints with different CRUD operations. We're going to be saving information in SQLite. We're going to be utilizing unit of work. We're going to be basically utilizing Automapper to map different objects, and we're going to be basically creating one single application for our API, one class library for our data services, one class library for our entities, and we're going to be see how actually we can map everything together. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. It will really help the channel. As well, if you'd like to support me, please consider supporting me on Patreon or buying me a coffee. Now with that said, grab your cup of coffee and let's get started. Just one simple note before we actually get started. This application that we're going to be building today is going to be the foundation of almost all of the other upcoming videos regarding web APIs. So instead of every single time going through the same setup of creating the same application over and over again, we're going to be utilizing this foundation moving on as a foundation. And from that moment forward, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be basically adding a new function to it. It is either going to be caching, optimization, more routing, adding Docker to it, etc, etc, etc. So this application that we're going to be building right now is going to be living with us through a lot of the upcoming videos, and we're going to be keep updating and changing it, but it's going to be a solid foundation that we currently have in order for us to basically have a much more fluent development process for any new feature that we want to add. Now let's go back to the video. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create our solution, then adding our API, then adding all of the class libraries that we need in order for us to make our base application ready. So within our terminal here, we're going to start by creating our solution. We're going to put .NET new SLN, and I'm just going to give it a name of Formula 1. And once that's ready, I'm going to start creating by my web API. So .NET new web API -n formula 1.api. So that's going to be my API. And now what I want to do is I want to basically add my application, or basically my web API, to the solution. So in order for me, when I open my solution, my web API will be added, my class library, so on and so forth. So every time I create anything, I need to add it to the solution, so everything will be linked together. So let's see how we can do that. So here, all I need to do to add this, I'm going to put .NET SLN Formula 1, and it's going to be .SLN add Formula 1 API Formula 1.csproj. Perfect, that's the first one. Now I need to create my other class, my first class library. So it's going to be, let's clear this up so we have a clear view. It's going to be .NET new class lib -n, and I'm going to call this Formula 1 .entities. Perfect. Now I need to add it as well. So .NET SLN Formula 1.sln add Formula 1 entities Formula 1 entities csproj. Perfect. Now let's clear this again, and I want to add the last application, last class library. So .NET new class lib -n. I'm gonna call it Formula 1 data service. Perfect. And I want to add it as well. So .NET SLN Formula 1.sln add Formula 1.data service. Perfect. So now that I have created, if I type, well, let me clear this up. If I type ls now, you should be able to see that I have 3 folders, everyone related to the application that I created. So one for APIs, one for data service, one for entities, so 2 class libraries and 1 API, and I have my solution file, which is going to be basically tying everything together. So for the sake of this video, what I'm going to be using, I'm going to use Rider as my code editor in order for me to basically build everything there. You can use any IDE that you want. You can use Visual Studio for Mac, or you can even use Visual Studio Code, but for this video I decided I'm going to be utilizing Rider. So let's see how we can open this up in Rider. So I'm just going to go Rider, And now, as you can see, once I open my solution, I'm able to see my 3 applications. So 2 console libraries and 1 API ready. Perfect. So all I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna run it just to make sure that everything is running as it should be. And we can see here that everything is actually building. Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted to see. Now, I'm gonna close this. And now I'm gonna start actually building my application. So the first thing that I want to do, I want to clear up my application because I can see there's a lot of generic file that has been created when I create my application. I want to get rid of them. So inside first my Formula 1 API, I'm going to delete the weather forecast. I don't really need it, so I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go to my controller. I'm going to delete this as well because I don't really need it as well. So let's go to edit, delete. Perfect. And inside my classes here, I'm going to also remove this. So edit, delete. And inside the entities, I'm going to also remove it. So edit and delete. Perfect. So now that I have done that, inside my entities folder, I'm going to add a new directory. I'm going to call this dbset. And inside my dbset, I want to create a few classes which going to represent utilized inside my application. So the first class is going to be called base entity, which is going to be inherited across all of the other entities. Then I'm going to create another class, and this class is going to be called achievement. And the last class is going to be called driver. Perfect. So what I want to do here as well, I'm going to directly inherit from that base entity to all of the other classes. And now I'm going to build up my base entity. So inside my base entity, I want to create basically the information or the fields that's going to be shared across all. So that's going to be ID, created at, updated at, and those basically main information, the status. And from there, basically all I have to do is define them once, and I can basically inherit them into the other classes. So here I'm going to start by, first of all, creating my GUID, which is going to be my ID. And I'm going to initialize it here. Then I'm going to create another one. It's going to be created at, or added at, added date. And let's make this, instead of a string, date time. And I'm just gonna make it equal datetime.utc now. And let's duplicate this, and this instead of added date, it's gonna be updated date. And lastly, I'm just gonna create the status field. Perfect. So now that I have this, now what I wanna do is I wanna build up my actual DB context objects. So here I have driver and I have achievement. So we're gonna start with the driver. The driver should be pretty straightforward. All I'm gonna be adding here is gonna be, first of all, a string, which is gonna be the driver's name. So I'm gonna put first name, and I'm gonna initialize it as well. And I'm gonna put the last name. And I'm gonna put the racing number, which is gonna be int. And I'm gonna make this as driver's number. Perfect. And lastly, I'm gonna add date of birth. So I'm gonna put here date time. And I'm gonna put here date of birth. Perfect. So this is going to be for my driver. Now let's update the achievements. And for the achievements, what do we want to track for every driver? It's going to be basically int as, let's put the race wins. So let's put here race wins. Then I'm going to specify another integer, which is going to be pole position. Then I'm gonna specify here the fastest lap, and of course the world championship, how many world championship, and I want to specify the driver ID. So GUID, and it's going to be driver ID. Okay, great. So now that I have created my driver, I have created my achievement. The last item that I want to do right now is I want to link the achievement with a driver so I can have a primary key and a foreign key between those two entities whenever I create my application DB context. And in order for me to do that, all I need is just to update both of these classes so they will know about each other and they will know how to communicate with each other. So inside my achievements, I'm gonna add a public virtual driver, gonna be get and set, and that should be it from here. Now inside the driver, we need to update it. First of all, I want to create the constructor, and here what I need to do is I'm gonna put public virtual collection of achievement. I'm just gonna call it achievements get set, and now I need to initialize it inside the controller, so I'm gonna put achievements equal new hash set of achievements, and that should be it. Perfect. So now if I go back to my terminal here, and I'm just gonna type .NET build, it should build everything for me, and I can see build succeeded. Perfect. Now what I want to do is I want to install some packages inside my data service class library in order for me to create my application DB context. And once I basically add all of these packages, it's easy for me to utilize all of the DB context functionality that's available for me out of the box with the packages. So inside my terminal here, I'm just going to navigate to my data service, and I'm going to start by creating the packages. So let me clear this up, see if I can make it this okay. So the first package will be .NET add package Microsoft entity framework core. Perfect. Let's clear this up. The second one is going to be .NET add package Microsoft. Actually, let's utilize this last command, Microsoft entity framework core .design, instead of having us to retype everything. Let's clear this up, and instead of design, now we want to put tools. Perfect. Let's clear this again, and instead of tools right now, all we need to do is put SQLite, because that's going to be the database that we're going to be utilizing. Okay, perfect. So now if I want to verify that everything has been installed successfully, if I go to the data service, under edit, I check my CS Prosh file, and we can see here that all of the packages has been installed successfully. Perfect. Let's close this up. Let me clear this up. And here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder or new directory. I'm going to call it data. And inside my data folder, I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to call it app DB context. Perfect. And inside my app DB context, I'm going to inherit from the DB context class, and we can see here it's directly referenced the Microsoft Entity Framework Core. So once I have done that, the next step for me is I'm going to start initializing my models. And as you can see from my from the previous class library, that we have driver and achievement. So that's going to be the main two that I want to add. So it's going to be public virtual dbset driver. I'm just going to call drivers get and set. And let's fix those reference. It will automatically reference that application, so that's good. And down here, instead of driver, I'm going to put achievement, and I'm going to rename this achievements. Perfect. And now I need to initialize the constructor. So it's gonna be like this, public app db context, and here we need to specify the configuration. So db options for app db context, I'm gonna call it options, and we need to pass it to the base class, and it's gonna have options. And here inside my constructor, and I'm not gonna do anything, so I can just make it all on one line. Yeah. And now I want to override a function, which is gonna be, let's see if we can automatically populate it on model. Perfect, this is it. Public override on model creating. So what I want to do here is I want to override a different implementation. So I'm gonna put model dot, oops, what is it called? Model builder. So let's put model dot entity, and it's gonna be for achievement. And I'm gonna specify the entity here, and I'm gonna start overriding it. So now all I want to do here is I'm gonna put, let's fix this. Entity dot has one, and I don't need this. I'm just gonna specify here. I'm gonna put the for the dot driver dot with many p dot achievements dot has foreign key. Again, it's going to be the dot driver the dot driver ID, and dot on delete, I'm gonna say delete behavior dot no action. And lastly, what I want to do is I'm gonna has constraint name, and I'm gonna specify it as, let's say, achievements and driver. Perfect. And don't forget the semicolon at the end. So what we did here is, if we want to do a quick summary, first of all, we have defined the entities that we want to add. So define the DB entities. And then basically here what we did is we have specified the relationship between the entities. Perfect. And this approach is called code first approach, because basically what we're doing here is we're utilizing C# code in order for us to create our database, define the tables, and define the relationship between those tables. And once we have done that, now it's pretty easy for us to take it further by start actually implementing this inside our API, and basically start wiring it up there, so we're actually able to create a database and basically start having our API and our database communicate with each other and basically acknowledge each other. So what we need to do right now is, inside my terminal here, I'm just gonna install a package inside my API. So I'm gonna go to formula.api, and I'm gonna put .NET add package Microsoft.entity framework core.design. Perfect. And now I'm gonna actually start to populate this. So inside my app settings, I'm gonna create a new section for the connection string, and I'm gonna call this default connection. Now I need to specify my data source, and I'm gonna call it app.db. Perfect. So now that's done, I can go to my program.cs and inject it here. So before I do any build, I'm gonna specify my connection string. So I'm gonna say connection string equal builder.configuration.get connection string, and I'm gonna provide it the name, and here it should be my default connection. And now that I have that, the next step for it, it's gonna be building my application DB context. So add DB, it should be add DB context. I need to specify here, it's gonna be app DB context, and the reason it's being like this because I need to add the reference to the other project, which I can do now. And let's add this reference here, perfect. And now that I specified this, now I specify the options that it's gonna go to the constructor, and I'm gonna put options.use SQLite, and here I'm just gonna pass the connection string that I have. Perfect. So if we're gonna do like a summary, what I did here is I'm gonna say get connection string, and here initializing my DB context inside the DI, which is stand for dependency injection container. And basically I specify the options. I'm using SQLite with the connection string, and if I go here, we can see that these options are being injected directly here and being directly added to my parent class, which is going to be the DB context. Perfect. So now what I need to do is basically I need to first of all initialize my database using the commands for code first, database code first, and then I'm going to utilize from there the repository pattern in order for me to be able to communicate to my database and connect to it. So inside my terminal here, I'm just going to navigate back to my database service. So inside my terminal, I'm just going to type cd formula1.database service, and I'm going to type the following. So .NET ef migration, and I'm going to call this initial migration, and I'm going to specify the startup project, and it's going to be Formula1 API. So now basically this will be able to create my migration scripts. And if you don't know what the migration scripts here is, basically we are converting the C# code that we currently have into SQL code. So basically right now, whenever I run those migration scripts, it will be able to be converted into SQL in order for my application to be, for my database to be created. So if I take a look here right now inside my data service, we can see that I have a wrong name inside migration. So .NET ef, I need to forget an S here, so it needs to be migrations. So let's make sure it's running. Build succeeded. We can see the migration has completed successfully, and we can see here inside my data service class library I have a new folder called migrations. And if I open this up, we can see here that now I have my tables. So I have my drivers tables, my achievements, with all of the information there. And this is basically what I see here is going to be the code for my SQL in order for my database to be created and for my tables to be created, and my primary keys and my foreign keys between my tables are also going to be created. And all of that is kind of powered by the code first that Entity Framework provide for me. So now that I have created my migration, now I need to apply it. It's going to be pretty straightforward. .NET ef database update, and I'm going to specify my startup project. It's going to be the same, formula.api. Oops, we have an error. Let's see what this error is. I think my error could be here. I forgot to put an S on connection strings, so let me try this again. And we can see it worked. So basically here I put a connection string, it should have been with an S. And now that's worked. I can see directly here on the left hand side I have app.db created, and if I double click this and let us test this connection, perfect. And if I click on OK, we can see right now on the right hand side I have my table and my application, my database. And if I click on servers, we can see that I have everything here. Let me refresh. And now I have my tables. If I open my tables, you can see here I have my achievements and my driver. Perfect. So now that this is working as it should, let me close this. Now it's time for me to create my repositories. So here all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new directory and I'm gonna call it repositories. And inside my repositories, I'm gonna create a new directory as well. I'm gonna call it interfaces. Perfect. And inside my interfaces here, I'm gonna create an actual interface and I'm gonna call it generic repository, and I'm gonna make sure it's an interface and I'm gonna create it. And from here, I'm gonna add certain conditions. I'm gonna make it an anonymous interface and I'm gonna say where T is of type class. And here I'm gonna add the generic methods for my interface. And let's see what I wanna do. So I wanna have a task of enumerable of object T, and that basically will return everything. So I'm just gonna call it all. Then I have another task of type T, and I'm gonna say get by ID, and I'm gonna pass a GUID because I know all of my tables are gonna have a GUID as an ID. And then I'm gonna put task as boolean, and this is basically gonna be for adding. I'm gonna make it T of type entity. Perfect. Task again bool, and here I'm gonna say update of type T entity. I'm gonna put task bool and delete. And here all I'm gonna take is another GUID of type ID. Okay, perfect. So now that I have done that, now I wanna create an interface for my drivers. So I'm gonna put driver repository. It's gonna be of type interface, and all I'm gonna do here is inherit from the generic repository, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be of type driver. Perfect. And I need to create another one for my achievements, so I'm gonna put achievements repository. And it's gonna be the same thing. It's just gonna be an interface, not a class, and it's gonna inherit from the generic repository of achievement. Perfect. So now that this is actually cover the main two tables that I have, now what I need to do is I want to add the implementation for these repositories. So inside my root folder, I'm gonna add a new class, and I'm gonna call it generic repository. Actually, before we do that, I just remembered inside my achievements, I want to add one method, and it's gonna be task. It's gonna return an achievement, and I'm gonna get driver achievement async, and this is gonna be based on the driver ID. So go with driver ID. There's something here, and what I want to do as well is I want to create my repository interface, so unit of work interface. So I'm gonna create the unit of work, and it's gonna be a type interface, and it's gonna be pretty straightforward. I'm gonna have the driver repository, driver get, and achievement repository, achievement, as well as get. And what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna specify the task, which is gonna be called complete async. Perfect. So these what I need. These basically I want to implement inside my unit of work once I get to it. So once I have done that, now what I want to do is I want to build my generic repository, and this is gonna be also very fun to do. So first of all, I want to make it anonymous, and I want to inherit from the generic repository of type T. I'll specify where T is of type class. Perfect. And here is telling me that I have not implemented those methods, so let us put them all here. So now you can see I have my all, get by ID, add, update, and delete. So here what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that this is async. Actually, before we do that, let us connect our application DB context. So I'm gonna make it public. First of all, let's put the logger, read only logger. Then it's gonna be protected app DB contacts. We're just gonna call it contacts for now. And I wanna have an internal DB set of type T. And here I'm gonna specify my DB set. And then I'm gonna have a constructor here. And inside my constructor, I'm gonna initialize all of these. So first of all, I'm gonna initialize is my app DB context. Let's make this underscore DB context. So here's gonna be context. I'm gonna put underscore DB context equal context. Perfect, that's the first one. Then what I wanna do is I wanna specify my DB set. So I'm gonna, actually let's put the loggers, logger. And let's make this underscore. Actually, let's make this underscore. And we're gonna put underscore logger equal logger. Perfect. Now I wanna set my DB set. So I'm gonna put DB set equal context.set. And here I'm gonna specify a set of T. And I think the AC needs to be capital, so let's do it like that. Okay, perfect. So now that I have done this, why is this one is not happy? What is it saying? It's fine. So now that I have done this, now let us start implementing the all. Actually, let's keep the all as unimplemented so we can implement it one by one, but let us get by ID. So here let's change this to async. And let's just remove this and add the proper implementation. And it's gonna be pretty straightforward. I'm gonna put return await dbset dot find async, and I'm gonna pass the ID. So that should be pretty straightforward, and I'm gonna make this as a nullable. So that means that I need to update my repository to be nullable. So let's go to that. And I'm gonna make this as nullable as well. Perfect. Let's close these. Okay, so that's gonna be the first one. It's gonna implement. The second one is gonna be the add. So let's remove this. And the add's gonna be also pretty straightforward. I'm gonna put await underscore db set dot add entity, and it needs to be add async. Perfect. And this needs to be async. And lastly, we're gonna have to return true. Perfect. So now I'm just gonna go back to my API. So let's clear this up. cd Formula 1 API. I'm gonna put .NET build. Just make sure everything is building. Okay, great, build succeeded. That's exactly what I wanted. And now what I want to do is I want to implement my driver repository. So I'm gonna add a new class, and I'm gonna call this driver repository. And it's gonna be also pretty straightforward. So the driver repository is gonna implement the it's gonna implement generic repository for driver. As well, it's gonna implement the iDriver repository. So both of them. So let's fix this reference here. Perfect. It's gonna tell us that we did not implement, so implement missing member. And here we can see basically it directly initialized my constructor, which is exactly what I wanted. And I'm gonna now specify the all. So I'm gonna put public override async task IEnumerable driver, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be all, and now we can specify. Let's see, why is this not happy? Okay, what did I call it? Maybe I did not call it all. I called it all. Okay, let's continue and then we can see. So here I'm gonna put my try catch, and let's start with the try. So I'm gonna put return await underscore dbset dot where, say x dot status equal. So I don't have this, so I'm just gonna put it now one for now, which basically it means active, and I'm gonna put dot as no tracking because I don't want it to be entity framework to track it. I'm gonna put as split the query in case it's a very big return that I need, and I'm gonna order by the added date, and lastly I'm gonna make it as a toList async. Perfect. And now here what I want to do is for my exception, in case anything goes wrong, I want to first make sure it's in the logger. So I'm going to put underscore logger to log error, and I'm going to pass here my exception, which I think it's E. And then here I'm going to pass my error message. So I'm just going to say this is going to be my repo. I'm going to say all function error, and I'm gonna add here my name. Actually it's gonna be type of and type of, and here we're gonna specify the driver repository. Perfect. And basically lastly, instead of throwing, I'm gonna let's throw it. And here let's see. Oh, we did not make it as virtual. That was one of the main issues, so let's fix it right now. So that means in case I want to override it, it makes it really easy. Okay, perfect. So now that I have created my all, the next one is gonna be my delete. So again, public override async task bool delete, and it's gonna take a GUID of ID. Again, try catch. Let me copy this instead of me typing it all over again. And here I'm gonna say delete instead of all. And here what I want to do first, I want to get my entity. So I'm gonna put var result equal await underscore dbset dot find async. Actually we can make it easier. Dot where. Actually we can make it first or default async, and we can match it by the ID, and we can say equal ID. If result equal null, which means we didn't find it, we return false. Else we put result dot status equal 0, means it's deleted. Result dot updated date equal date time now dot UDC now, actually not instead of now, and that should be it. And then we put return true. Perfect. So that's the delete. And lastly, let's do the update. So public override async task boolean, and we're gonna say it's gonna be the update, and we're gonna take a type of entity which is gonna be driver, I'm gonna call it driver, and again try. I'm gonna copy this, and here is gonna be update. And what I want to do here is I'm going to follow the same logic, so I'm just going to get this, and here is going to be driver.id, and I'm going to say here, in case that my result equal null, I'm going to return false, else I'm going to put result dot updated date equal datetime.utc now, result dot driver number equal driver dot driver number, result dot first name equal driver dot first name, result dot last name equal driver dot last name, result dot date of birth equal driver dot date of birth, and lastly I'm gonna put return true. Perfect. Again, I'm just gonna do my .NET build just to make sure everything is still building, nothing is crashing, and as I can see here, the build is succeeded. And now once this is done, I'm gonna move to the other repository, which is gonna be my achievements. So again, I'm gonna create here a achievements repository. Again, for the achievement, achieve, I forgot the E. And let's update it here, edit, rename, and I need to add the E here. And once I do that, all I'm gonna do is basically similar to what I have done here. I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna update it for the achievement. So instead of inheriting from a driver, it's gonna be from achievement. And instead of iDrive, it's gonna be I achievement repository. And this is not happy because I did not implement all of the functionality. Similarly here. Perfect. So here we can see that it automatically added my constructor, and in order for me to initialize all of what's needed. And this is my custom method, which is gonna be get driver achievement async. So let's do this first. Let's convert this to an async here. And it's gonna be pretty straightforward. I'm gonna put try, catch. Let's take the same error structure, so let me just copy it and update it in the achievements here. And here instead of driver repository, it's going to be achievement repository. And this is called get driver async, so let's make it like this. Perfect. And here we're going to put var result equal await underscore dbset dot first or default async. Now let's go and try to match it by driver's ID equal driver ID, and that should be it actually, and let's return it. And this one needs to be a nullable, so let's make sure this is nullable. And we go to achievement and let's convert this to nullable. Perfect. So now that I have done that, what I can do is I can simply copy the one for all and for the delete, and as well for the update, and we can update it there. So I'm just gonna copy them and update them here. So let's start first by the all. Instead of driver, I'm gonna put achievement. We can see everything should be working, and here it should be driver repository, which is fine. We need to change it to achievement repository. Okay, great. So now this is working, and the all should be all the same. That's fine. The delete should be also all the same, which is fine. And here I have my update, and this needs to change. It's not driver, it's achievement. And I need to change here from driver to achievement. And let's copy this. And this one is not achievement repository, it's actually achievement. So that's why, and let us put an ID here. Perfect. So now all I need to do is just update this information. So for achievements, what I have here is first is gonna be the fastest lap. So let us update this equal achievement dot fastest lap result dot pole position equal achievement dot pole position. I have result dot race wins equal achievements dot race wins. I have result dot world championships equal achievement dot world championships. And that should be it for my achievement repository. So I'll put .NET build. Perfect, I can see everything is working. Great. So now what I need to do after that is I need to build my unit of work. So I'm gonna add here unit of work. And basically what I need to do first of all is I need to inherit from the unit of work that I created previously. So first of all, it's gonna be private read only app db context, and we're gonna call it context, and then it's gonna be public driver repository. We're gonna be drivers get, then we're gonna put public achievement repository achievements and a get. Now I need to specify my constructor, and the constructor is going to take two things. First of all, it's going to be my app db context and my ilogger factory. Perfect, I'm going to call it logger factory, and now I can initialize it from here. So it's going to be the underscore context equal context, and it's going to be creating a logger, and this logger is going to be equal to logger factory dot create logger, and I'm going to call this logs. Perfect. And now what I can do, I can put drivers equal new driver repository, and I can pass the context and I can pass the logger. Great. And I can do the same thing for achievements. It's going to be achievements, and it's going to be equal to achievement repository, similar things. So now that I have initialized these, I still have two things that I need to initialize. First of all, it's going to be public async task complete async, and here all is going to say await underscore context dot save changes async. Actually, we can make this more of a boolean, so we can make sure it actually worked. We'll update it, but basically what we can do here, we can put var result equal, and we can say return result. If it's bigger than 0, it means that it is success, because if it's equal to 0 or less, it means that it failed. And lastly, what I want to do is I want to add my garbage collector. So I'm going to put public void dispose, so that means it will dispose for anything which is loosely created. All I need to do is dispose, and I'm going to add here also disposable. Perfect. And now let's update the unit of work. So this will return actually a response. So I'm gonna put go to, and here the complete async is gonna return a boolean. Perfect. So now that this is done, let's do .NET build. First of all, let's clear it up. .NET build, and we can see that everything is building successfully. Perfect. So in order for me to wire this up, what I can do is directly I can inject my unit of work interface and my unit of work implementation into my program.cs inside my API in order for my DI container to actually recognize them, and so I can able to utilize them inside my controllers. So let's see how we can do that. So inside my program.cs, all I'm going to be doing here is before the actual application builds, I'm going to put builder.services.add scoped, and it's going to take the unit of work interface and the implementation for it, unit of work, unit of work, and that should be it. So that's mean right now my repository should be active within my application. So now that's done, now I want to think actually about my implementation for my controllers, my DTOs, and basically my mappers. So the next step is, once I have set up my database, the next step right now is I need to basically think of my mappings inside my controllers. I actually think about the controller implementation. So basically I don't want to use the object that I have created for my database as a way for my clients to communicate with my API. So what I want to do is I want to create some kind of an API models, and those called DTOs. I want to create certain DTOs which basically allow the consumer to send specific requests, and these requests are going to come to my API. They're going to be mapped to my objects for my database, and then they're going to be utilized inside my repository to be added. So what I want to do is I want to create this layer in order for me to separate my database entities with the entities that the actual clients will be utilizing. And it's really important. It's part of my separation of concerns that I want to actually implement within my APIs. So let's see how we can implement that. And before actually we do that, we need to actually think about the mappings, and that means of how are we going to actually translate that client model to my database model. And in order for us to do all of that, we can actually utilize a library called Automapper, which will automatically map all of the different objects from one object to another. So it will save us a lot of time trying to do those mapping manually, and we're going to see all of that, how we can actually implement it right now. So let's start by installing some of these packages that we need in order for us to do the mapping. We're going to put .NET add package Automapper. Perfect. And in order for us to utilize it with the dependency injection, we need to install another package. It's going to be .NET add package Automapper .extensions .microsoft .dependency injection. Perfect. And now once I have done that, inside my program.cs, I need to initialize it. So I can do it here. We can put builder.services.add Automapper, and we need to identify where it's going to find it, the DLLs, in order for it to be actually able to do the mapping. So we're going to put app domain dot current domain dot get assemblies, and that basically what it does is it allows us to actually scan all of the DLLs. It's gonna find those DLLs with all of the objects inside, and once it's able to find them, whenever we have any profile for mapping one object to another, it will be able to automatically recognize it at runtime. So that's the powerful thing about it. And because here we have added into the dependency to the DI container, we're able to directly access it. So once we have done that, now what I want to do is I want to start building my controllers. So inside my controllers folder, I want to create a new controller, and I'm just going to call it base controller. And the reason that I have here a base controller is in order for me to have a controller where I put all of the configuration in, and all of the other controllers will be able to inherit from that controller, rather than having this configuration repeated over and over again on every single controller that I create. So I create them in one single controller, and from that I can inherit these configuration to all of the other controllers. And this main controller, I'm calling it base. So I'm gonna start first by defining my route to it. And the route's gonna be pretty straightforward, API / the controller name. And then I'm gonna specify this as an API controller. not sure why is this happening, so let's do it like this. Okay, perfect. And now here I'm just gonna inherit from controller base. So now what I want to do is I want to initialize my application DB context. So it's gonna be protected, read only. Actually, let's initialize the unit of work. It's gonna call it unit of work. And then I'm gonna initialize protected read only IMapper, which is gonna be utilizing the Automapper. I'm gonna put mapper here, and then I'm gonna specify my constructor, and inside my constructor, first of all, the unit of work and my mapper, and then directly initialize them inside my constructor. Perfect. So now that I have done that, I have created my base controller. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to create my drivers controllers. And here all I'm going to do is I'm going to inherit from the base controller. And we can see here it's telling me to need to implement all of the stuff. So let's implement them. And this is done. And I'm going to create my achievements controller. And again, I'm going to inherit from the base controller. It's going to ask me to implement everything, and everything is implemented. Okay, perfect. So now again, .NET build. So now what I'm going to start first is I'm going to create my objects, which is going to, the client's going to be able to send me in order for me to either update my achievements, create a driver, so on and so forth. So I'm going to start creating by these objects, and these objects are called DTO, data transfer objects. And basically from there, once I have them, I'm going to be able to actually utilize them inside my controller. So inside my Formula 1 entities, I'm going to create a new directory. I'm going to call them DTOs. And I'm going to separate them into two folders. So the first one is going to be called the responses, which is everything that the API will send back. And another one is going to be called the requests. And under the request one, I'm going to create a new class or new DTO. I'm going to call it create driver achievement request. And here it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to have basically the GUID for the driver. And then we're going to have prop integers. We're going to put world championship. And then I'm going to put fastest lap. Then I'm going to put pole position. And lastly, I'm going to put wins, which is going to be for race wins. Perfect. And now I'm going to create the response, which is going to be almost identical to this, which is going to be driver achievement response. And I can just take all of this information because this one I'm going to be sending back. Again, the reason that they are separate in order for me to basically have the flexibility to update them. But for now, it should be completely fine to have them almost similar. Once these DTOs are created, what I want to do right now is I want to create the mappings utilizing Automapper. So inside my API, I'm going to create a new directory, and I'm going to call this profiles. I'm going to call it mapping profiles. And inside my mapping profiles, I'm going to create a new class, and this class is going to be domain to response, and there's going to be another one that's going to be called request to domain. Perfect. So we're gonna start by request to domain, and the request to domain should be pretty straightforward. We're basically taking the request and basically mapping it directly into the object. So everything inside the Automapper, it needs to happen through the constructor. So here basically you can see I have initialized it. The class needs to inherit directly from the profile, and we can see it's basically from Automapper. Similarly to the other one, we need to inherit from profile. Okay, perfect. Now inside the requested domain, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna specify a map. So I'm gonna say create map, and here inside the create map I need to specify from what to what. So I'm gonna say it's gonna be from create driver achievements request to achievements. This is gonna be the main mapping that I have, and then here I'm gonna specify right now the mapping. So I'm gonna say for member I need to specify the destination. I'm gonna put destination.racewinds equal. Now I need to specify the options. So race. So I'm gonna put the options and options dot map from, and here is gonna be src and src dot wins. So why are we doing this? Because if I take a look at my created driver achievement request, we can see here this is called wins. When I look into my DTO, my database object inside achievement, it's called the race wins. And what I want to do here is I want basically a way where I can notify Automapper that this field belongs to this field. And basically once I do that inside the profile, whenever Automapper sees these two objects, it will automatically map these two fields together without me having to do all of this manual mapping manually again. So once I set it once in the profile, it will be available for me anywhere that I need to use it. So this is the first one. So let's go back from here, and we can see that this is actually added. So now I need to add another one, which is gonna be 4. Actually I need to close it. So now this is gonna be the first one. Then I'm gonna see, need to close it twice, and then I'm gonna put dot for member. Now I need to start to put the other ones. So it's gonna again for destinations, and for the destination I'm gonna put dot status. So I directly want for every single request coming in new, I just want to specify a new status. And for the options, I'm going to put OPT. Similarly, it's going to be OPT dot map from, and here instead of relying on an object, I'm just going to say it's equal to 1. So what I can do is I can put src, and src is going to be equal to 1. Perfect. Now, the other item that I want, again, for member, and it's going to be destination, and this is going to be destination dot added time, added date, and here we're going to have similar options. So opt, oops, this needs to be a comma. I'm going to put opt dot map from src dot, sorry, it's going to be equal to date time now dot utc now. Perfect. So once I have done that, the last one is going to be for member destination. Actually, let's put it on a new line. Destination dot date, updated date, options, again opt dot map from src dot date time, actually as date time dot utc now, and at the end of this a semicolon. So that's going to be the first mapping, which I'm going to be doing between created driver achievements and achievements. And the other one is going to be from the, so we have created the create. I think we also need to have the update And then we can do the mapping, because the update, we don't really want to do all of these. Where is it? We don't really want to do the added date and the status because they are already set. All we need to do is set up the update date. So here what I can do is I can just copy this, and instead of create a driver, I'm going to say update the driver achievements, and here instead of create, it's going to be update driver achievements. And if we go back to my to my profiles, I can just copy this. So instead of create, it's going to be update driver, and within for the update, I don't need the status and I don't need the date added, so we can remove them directly from there. Okay, perfect. Now I have only two. Great. So now that I have created these, I have created the mappings, I have created my achievements. Next step is I want to build my achievements controller. I have already started here, but let us take this a step further. So first let's do some refactoring so everything will fit in a single page. And then now I want to do is I want to start by getting my driver achievement. So I'm going to put HTTP GET, and here I'm going to specify my route, and it's going to be driver ID, and it's going to be of type GUID. And then here I need to specify public async task action result. It's going to get driver achievements, and it's going to take a GUID as a driver ID. And what I can do here is I can put var driver achievements equal await underscore unit of work dot achievements dot get driver achievement by ID async, and I'm gonna pass the driver ID here, and I'm gonna say if driver achievements equal to null. I need to check if the driver exists. So I can put var driver equal, actually what I can do is just return not found, as simple as that. I can put a message. Yeah, I don't want to give a lot of information on this URL. And then I can put if, actually else, what I'm gonna do is I need to map out the response. So now what I can do put is var result equal underscore mapper dot map driver, what did we call the response? Driver achievement response from driver achievements. So what we're doing here is basically we are calling the automapper. I'm telling it to map. Basically, I'm telling it to map everything from the achievements. We can see it's achievement to the object DTO that I have. I just realized that we did not fill in the profile for the response, which we'll have to do right now because it's going to be domain to response, and we'll not do it. We'll do it right now after we finish from this controller. So if I go back to this controller here, after we have done that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put return okay with the result. Perfect. So now let us do the other auto mapping. So here I'm going to be from domain to response, and it's going to be similar to this. All I'm going to do is going to create a constructor and then create everything there. So I'm just going to copy these and update it as I go. Actually, let's copy all the way to here because it's easier, and then we can update it. So here what I want to do is first I need to update the constructor's name, and then it's going to be from achievements to It's called driver achievement response. So we're gonna put driver achievement response, and we can see here from achievements, not called race wins, it's called wins, and it's gonna come from race wins. And we need to fix this first, so let's fix it. Okay, and this is gonna be dot race wins. Perfect. I don't need the status, not need it. Added date, I don't need it. And updated date, I don't need it. Perfect. So that should be sufficient. And now if I put .NET build, we can see it is building successfully. And now let's see if I can run it, what happens. We have an error. Let's see what is this error. I have an issue with the routing. Let's see here. Route template API. Oops, I forgot to close this here. Okay, let's try it again. Perfect, it's running on this. Let's get this here. And as you can see, I have my one API ready. And now it's going to ask me for the driver ID. I don't have any driver ID, so I should get a 400. So if I put 1, it must be a valid GUID. Let me find a valid. Actually, as soon as I can see it right now, it's fine. Once I have valid information, I can continue, but at least I know that my application is actually running as it should be because I can able to see the endpoint that I has created. Perfect. Let's go back to Rider. Let us stop that. And let's continue. So now this is for the achievements. Now what I want to do is I want to do creating of the driver achievement. So this is going to be HTTP post. And let's do the template. It's going to be empty. And this is going to be again public. Async task, iAction result. And we're going to say here add achievement. And we're going to say it's going to be from body. And create driver achievement request. I'm going to call it achievement. I think that should be enough. And here I'm going to say if not equal model state dot is valid, I'm going to return bad request, which means that the request body which is coming in is not valid. So I'm just saying it's going to be a bad request, so I don't have to progress the request any further. If everything is fine, I'm going to put var result equal, I'm going to map the incoming DTO to an object DTO for my database dot map. And here basically I'm going to specify it's going to be transferred to an achievement from my create driver achievement request. And once that is done, all I'm going to do is await underscore unit of work dot achievements dot add, and I'm going to add the result. And then I'm going to put await underscore unit of work dot complete async. And then what I'm going to do here is return. Okay, actually, I'm going to return the created at action. And we're going to start first by name of. It's not, does not exist yet, but actually get driver achievement. Yes, we have created it. Oh yes, so that should be fine. And then I need to specify my ID. So this is going to be driver ID. So put driver ID equal result dot driver ID, and lastly we're going to pass the result. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And the last one is going to be the update. So HTTP put, again it's going to have empty template, going to be public async task iAction result. It's going to be update achievement, again from body, and here we're going to put the update driver achievement request. I'll call it achievement, similar to what we have done before. If not equal model state.isValid, return bad request, else var result equal underscore mapper dot map achievement with achievement. So we're converting in from update driver achievement request to an achievement, and then from there what I'm doing is I'm gonna just update it. So I'm gonna put await underscore unit of work dot achievement dot update, and I'm gonna put the result, and await underscore unit of work dot complete async, and lastly I'm gonna return no content. This is basically the response type whenever I have a update. So let me start on this again. We can see I have my get, my post, and my put. Okay, perfect. So now the next step is I want to create a driver. It's in order for me to actually create achievements for them. So I'm going to stop this right now here. And I'm going to go back to my DTOs. And inside my DTOs here, I'm going to create one for drivers. So it's going to be create new class. I'm going to call it create driver request. And it's going to be pretty straightforward. So prop string first name, and I'm going to initialize it equal string.empty. Let's update this to last name. Then I'm going to specify the driver number, so it's going to be an int, and I'm going to put here a driver number. It's not a string, so we don't need this. And lastly, I'm going to put prop date time. I'm going to put here date of birth. Okay, perfect. So this is for the created driver. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to create another one. I'm going to say update driver request. I'm going to have the similar information there. But the only thing here I'm going to add is it's going to be a GUID with the driver ID. And now I'm going to create a response. And the response here is going to be get driver response. And basically what I want to return is prop GUID driver ID. I want to return their full name rather than first name and last name by itself. Actually, it's going to be string. And this is going to be initialized equal string.empty. And then I'm going to put public int driver number get set, and lastly public date time. I'm gonna put here, it's gonna be the date of birth. Again, similar get and set. Okay, perfect. So now that I have done this, I need to go back to my Formula 1 API, and inside my profiles I need to add the profiles for this. So I'm going to start from the domain to the response. It's going to be a bit straightforward. So it's going to be create map from driver to driver. What did I call it? Driver. Let's see, what did we call it? That's it. I misspelled it here, so let's edit it out. Rename get driver. Okay. Get the driver response. So here it's gonna be get driver response, and I'm gonna put dot for member, and here we're gonna put destination destination dot full name, and we're gonna put the options dot map from src, and here we can use string concatenation. We're gonna put src dot first name space src dot last name. Perfect. So that's going to be the first one for the mapping. Now I can do the other one, which is going to be the request to the domain to response. Oh, I forgot to close it, so let's just add a semicolon. And now I'm going to put the request to domain as well. Pretty straightforward stuff. The first one is going to be create map, and it's going to be create driver request to driver, and then it's going to be dot from dot for member, and we're going to put the destination dot status options dot map from src 1 again dot for member. Now let's do the dates. Actually, let me copy paste them because it's easier than trying to reinvent the wheel. And for the updated, so copy these, put them here. Perfect. Now let's do lastly, let's copy this for the updated driver. So instead of create a driver, we're gonna put the updated driver. And for the update, all we need to do is just update the updated date, so we don't need any of this. Perfect. So let's go back to our terminal, and my favorite command, dotnet build. Let's see how it turns out. Perfect. We can see here everything is successful. So once we have done that, let's go to our drivers controller and start building it up. So the first thing is going to be the HTTP GET, and let's specify the route, and the template is going to be driver ID. Actually, it's going to be driver ID as GUID. And then it's going to be public async task action result get driver, and it's going to be GUID driver ID, and we're going to put var driver equal underscore, actually await underscore unit of work dot drivers dot get by ID driver ID. If driver equal null, return not found. If it is null, if it's not, actually if it does exist, var result equal underscore mapper dot map to driver response, and it's gonna be from driver, and all I'm gonna return is return OK with the result. Perfect. So that's gonna be the get. Next is going to be the post, so HTTP post, again it's going to be empty, and public async task action result, add a driver, it's going to take from body driver. Let's fix those references. Perfect. And here I put if underscore model state dot is valid is not true, return bad request, simple as that. Else var result equal underscore mapper dot map to driver. Actually this one is going to be driver for creation. Driver, what would we call it? create a driver request. Perfect. From driver, and then I'm gonna put await underscore unit of work dot drivers dot add result await underscore unit of work dot complete async, and lastly I'm gonna return the created at action, and it's gonna be get name of, and it's gonna be the get driver, this is what we called it, get driver, and then we need to pass the ID, so new driver ID equal result dot ID, and lastly the object, which is going to be result. Okay, well actually here it will be good to convert back the object into a DTO, but for simplicity's sake I'm keeping it as is. The last one is going to be put, and then we're going to have delete, and I got all. So let's see, HTTP put, again empty template, public, actually let's copy this and update it a bit faster. So instead of add driver, it's gonna be update driver. Instead of create a driver request, it's gonna be update driver request. And instead of add, it's gonna be update. And instead of returning all of this, we're gonna return no content, and everything will work fine. Perfect. That's for the drivers. Now let's do the get all. And let's copy the get by ID, and we can update it. So let's copy this. And I'm gonna remove this. I don't need it. And I'm gonna call this get all drivers. Don't need driver ID. Don't need driver ID. And get, but instead of get by ID, I'm gonna say all. We don't need this. And instead of returning one object, I want to create a enumerable of, what was it called? Enumerable of get driver responses, and that means it's going to convert it into a list, and that should be it. Actually, you can make this a bit smaller. Let's remove this, put it here. I don't need this. 2 lines. We can even make it 1, but 2 lines is a bit more clear. And lastly, we're gonna do the delete. So we're gonna put HTTP delete. We're gonna specify the route. It's gonna be driver ID GUID. Let's remove this. And then public async task action result delete driver GUID driver ID for driver equal the score, actually await score unit of work dot drivers dot get by ID. We need to make sure it exists. If driver equal null, return not found. Else, if it does actually exist, we're gonna return. We need to delete it, so we're gonna put await underscore unit of work to drivers dot delete, and we're gonna pass the ID await underscore unit of work dot complete async, and lastly return no content. Perfect. let's start it right now. So let's start this. Let's close this, and let's create a driver. So driver post, try it out, first name Lewis Hamilton 44, let's put any date, let's put 1983, let's put February or something like that. And we can see it has created successfully. We got a 201 and we got everything here, and we got the ID. Perfect. So let's take this, and it even gave us the full location if you want to find this driver. Perfect. So now that I found this, let's try the get driver by ID. Try it out, specify the driver ID, execute, and we got everything here. We can see that you have a problem with the driver ID, so let's fix it. Let's go back to Rider, and let's take a look at the mapping that we currently have. Where is it? So we have domain to response, and here we need to add one for the ID, so we can put dot for members, destination, dot driver ID, options, we need to add a comma, options dot map from src dot id, src.id. Perfect. That should work. So let's stop this, run it. Perfect. So let's come back here. It should be open here, and let's execute this again. And you can see now we get the ID perfectly. So now that I have this, what I want to do is I want to create an achievement. Post, try it out. I'm gonna put the driver ID that I have. Oops, let's copy paste it again. So World Championship 7, although it needs to be 8. Fastest lap 104. Pole position 104. No, pole position I think 63. And wins is gonna be 104 or 103, I think. Execute. Now you can see it's created successfully. I got the driver ID, I got my ID, perfect. So now if everything goes to plan, if I get the achievement for that driver, we should be able to see the exact achievement. And as you can see here, I got my driver ID, my World Championship, fastest lap, perfect. And this basically right now, it means that I have a full working API with entity framework, with Automapper, with unit of work, and with a good implementation of separation of concerns. So this application that we currently create is going to be the basis of almost all of the future videos regarding APIs. But instead of having to go all of the manual work every time to create an API, we're going to utilize this and build on top of it, either for caching, either for optimization, either for adding new services, etc., etc. And this is going to be our main application to do so. It has all of the information that we need. It has SQLite as a database. It has entity framework already wired up, and we can basically scale it up as we need to. I hope this video was helpful. Well, let's do a quick recap of what we have covered today. So the first thing that we did today is we have basically created the applications, which is 3. We had the API, the data service, and the entity. We connected them to a single solution. Then we have started by building the entities. We added the DB set. We created a base entity, which is going to contain all of the main information. We created the driver and the achievement entity. Once that has been done, inside the data service, we have created our application DB context, where we have set up everything that we need, and then basically we have wired it up into our API. and then basically we have created the connection string, and then from there we have fired it up into our DI container, so we'll be able to utilize it. Once we have done that, then we have started working into the repository pattern, where we have created the repositories that we need and the unit of work. Once that's done, again, we have mapped everything here. And then once we have done all of that, we start working on our DTOs and our controller to make everything is working as it needs to. And then now we have a full application ready for us to utilize in any way that we need and to build upon. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please like, share, and subscribe. It will really help the channel. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments down below, and we'll be more than happy to help. Again, thanks very much for watching, and have a great day.